Okay, 8th grade. I tried finding a video that didn't overcomplicate things for the last 6 problems on your polynomial worksheet from yesterday. So that would be page 22. So I'm going to take, this is actually the problem from the last page of the Turn It In Tuesday, the review packet that I gave you that was due this week. There is a part of that where I wrote, solve by factoring to find the x-intercepts. So this is actually that problem. So I'm going to do 2 examples that will help you to do those last 6 problems. So basically, we want to factor this and put it into factored form. So we want to have our 2 parentheses here. But the problem is we have this 2 in the coefficient of x squared. And what we want to do is we want to get that to be 1. So what you're going to look for first is I want to look at 2 and see if it is a common factor of the coefficient of x and the last term, and it is. And all of the problems that you have today will be, the first term should be a greatest common factor for all 3 of the numbers that you have in that expression. So I have a 2. 2 goes into -4 evenly. 2 goes into -70 evenly. So I'm going to factor out a 2. And we've done this before. It's been a little while since we've done it, but basically for each of these terms, they all share 2 in common. They're all divisible by 2. So I'm going to factor out that 2. That means I'm going to put the 2 on the outside of parentheses. So when I do that, I'm going to do this. Right? So when I do that, now all I need to do is figure out what do I multiply 2 by to get to 2x squared. Well, that would be 2 times x squared gives me 2x squared. 2 times what will give me -4x? Well, 2 times -2x will give me -4x. And then 2 times what will give me -70, and that would be -35. So I've got 2 on the outside. If I were to distribute that, I would be right back up to this 2x squared minus 4x minus 70. Okay, so now what you have is you have a situation where the 2 is on the outside, but now you have a trinomial that looks very similar to what you've been doing so far. So you can kind of ignore this 2 on the outside, and now you're going to factor as usual. So you're thinking to yourself, what are 2 numbers that multiply together to give me -35 that also add together to give me -2? 2 numbers that multiply to get me -35 and add to get me -2. So my thought bubble here, and my first thought, I've got 1 and 35, but those won't get me anywhere close to 2 or -2. So I'm going to look at either plus or minus 7. I know that one of my factors has to be negative and one has to be positive. And then, so I guess I'll look at either negative or positive 5. So which ones of these multiply together to give me -35, but also add together to give me -2? Well, if I need to be negative, then it's going to be -7 and positive 5, because these 2 will multiply to give me -35, and because my negative is in the bigger number, when I add these together, -7 and positive 5, that will give me the -2. So -7 and positive 5 will be the 2 values that I put. So remember, I said I always do this first. I set it up like that. I know I'm going to have an x here and an x here, and then I just need to input my -7 and positive 5. So the only thing that you're doing differently this time around is that you have to factor out that first coefficient, because you need that coefficient of x squared to be 1. So let's try it with one more example. And then you can try 6 today. And that's all you have to do today. 8k squared minus 24k minus 144. So 8, we can see pretty obviously that 8 is a factor of 24. Maybe not as obvious 8 going into negative 144, but it does go in evenly. I believe it's 18. Yes, so 8 goes into 144 18 times. So I am going to look at these. 8 goes into 8, 24, and 144. So I'm going to extract the 8. I'm going to pull an 8 on the outside of parentheses, and then I'm going to think to myself, what do I multiply 8 by to get 8k squared? Well, 8 times k squared will give me 8k squared. 8 times what will give me negative 24k? That's going to be negative 3k. Negative 3k times 8 will give me negative 24k. And then 8 times what will give me 144, or negative 144? That's going to be negative 18. All right, so now I'm back to, I kind of ignore this over here because it's already factored out. And now I need to figure out and factor the k squared minus 3k minus 18. This is like everything you were doing yesterday in that poly packet. So when I set this up, this is usually what I do. I have a k here, I have a k here, and then I know it's going to be plus or minus something, plus or minus something. My thought bubble over here is going to be what factors of 18 will add together or give me a sum of negative 3. I know that my 18 is negative, so I'm going to look for plus or minus 2 numbers. So let me just try, let's try 2 and 9, right? We've got 2 and 9, negative 2, let's say negative 2 times positive 9 will give me 18. But if I were to add negative 2 and positive 9, I would not be close to negative 3, and vice versa if I had a positive 2 and a negative 9. So that's not going to work. Let's try a positive or negative 6 and a negative or positive 3, because these two will multiply together to give me negative 18. I noticed that my answer is my sum has to be a negative 3. So I'm going to take that negative 6. And let's try the positive 3. Those two multiply to give me negative 18. And a negative 6 and a positive 3 will give me, when I add them together, will give me negative 3. So these two, then a negative 6 and the positive 3, that's what gets plugged in here. And it doesn't really matter right now what that order is. You could have had k plus 3 and k minus 6, but that's the way that it looks. You're going to try a couple of problems like this today, and indeed only 6 problems today. So give it a shot. Let's see what happens. If you have questions, come to me on Monday with your questions. Just really quick too, once remember that the whole reason that we get things into factored form, inevitably these are quadratics, and you can actually now determine what your x-intercepts are. So remember that if I added in kind of like equals y, that would mean that one of these factors has to be equivalent to 0. So either k minus 6 is 0 or k plus 3 is 0. So then you could factor, actually you can solve and have x equals 6, x equals negative 3 for this one. I'm not going to write it down, but that's what it would look like. And then here it would be x minus 7 equals 0 or x plus 5 equals 0. So your x-intercepts would be positive 5 positive 7 or negative 5. So that's kind of the reason that we do this, is to find our x-intercepts with regards to graphing or real life situations. Okay, that's it for today. Go try those 6 problems, see what you can do. Remember, factor out first till you get a trinomial with only 1 as the coefficient of x squared, and then you will kind of ignore that outside number and factor as you did previously. Bye-bye.